Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that delay. I'm figuring out how to use Zoom. My name is Ryan Banks. I'm joined by my colleagues Dali Malayile and Samora Dodwana. Together, we make up the data management team for the Bulungulu Incubator. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar today. So we'll be presenting the data management system that we've been building for the past couple of years at the Bulungulu Incubator. So as Siggy said, we'll run through the presentation first, and if everybody could hold their questions for the end, that would be great. Cool. So yeah, we'll jump straight into it. So for the past 2 decades, the BI has been implementing preconception-to-career projects within the Bulungulu community. These projects have covered education, healthcare, sustainable livelihoods, youth development, and social cohesion. And through these projects, we've had access to a significant amount of very rich data. And over the past few years, we've been developing a robust data management system to help us effectively use this data. That's allowed us to assess intervention effectiveness and manage project implementation. This has been an iterative process with us learning lessons from various implementations and taking those lessons forward. So we'll start off with some of the challenges that we experienced and the lessons that we learned from these challenges. So first off, in our context, the availability of technology, internet connectivity, and digital literacy levels influence the feasibility of data collection and transmission. So for our system, we now use tablets to capture our data, and these tablets have digital forms on them that can be filled out and saved offline. And this offline functionality is critical as it allows us to carry on capturing and saving data even when the network goes down, which sometimes can be more often than not. These electronic forms are deliberately designed to be very user-friendly, and our data capturers are provided with regular trainings and supervision to ensure that the data capture forms are implemented as intended. For community-based organizations operating in a rural or remote area, the challenge of a wide beneficiary geographic distribution comes into play. And decisions regarding digital versus paper-based capture methods need careful consideration. So while digital platforms offer efficiency and accuracy, they may not always be feasible or even necessary. In our case, we started off capturing using paper-based means, and this was just because it's a whole lot cheaper and very quick to roll out, and there's not much training that's involved with it. But we quickly learned that this wasn't feasible, and we switched over to electronic capture. But I'm not going to go too much into that detail yet. I'll hand over to Dali a little bit later. He will take us through the details of that migration. So automation for efficiency. So building a smoothly running data system, given all of our different projects and the resulting mass of data, required establishing an automated data flow pathway. So what this means is that we needed data to flow automatically and efficiently between our data capture, our data storage, and our data visualization platforms. And within this automation, we made sure to include some data cleaning and data verification processes, just to enhance the accuracy and efficiency of this whole process. And then lastly, simplicity. So the rural and community setting demands simplicity in system design. So avoiding overly complicated platforms and systems with numerous different components is crucial. We found that a system that is context-specific, user-friendly, and requires minimal maintenance was key to ensuring successful take-up of the system and long-term use. And we also stress the importance of democratizing the data that we capture. So we share the data with any parties who are interested, from our beneficiaries whose data we are capturing to our data capturers to all managers or anybody across the organization and interested stakeholders outside of the organization. And we do this in a way that still maintains the confidentiality and security of the data. All right, so how our system works. So our system is completely electronic. So from start to finish, there's no paper involved. And starting off our data capture, we capture our data using tablets that use a platform called Kobo Collect. And this allows Kobo Collect allows us to create and deploy very powerful electronic forms. And the reason Kobo is so powerful is that we can build forms with a fairly high level of data validation to ensure that data coming into the system is of a reasonable quality before it goes through the cleaning processes. And we can do this all from our main office or wherever we want it. And the reason we can do this is because Kobo allows one to make changes to existing forms or even create new forms and deploy these changes to the Kobo server. And then once the tablets that have the Kobo Collect app installed on them engage with a Wi-Fi network or a cell phone network, they'll automatically sync with these changes. And this functionality allows us to be very flexible and responsive to the data capture landscape, which has come in handy on numerous occasions. So if we decide we want to start capturing a new health metric or an education metric, we can make those adjustments on our forms and on our system, and we can start capturing that new data point within the space of a few hours, which is obviously very, very cool. Um, so from our tablets, so from Kobo Collect, our data is then automatically pulled into Airtable, which we use as our storage space. So Airtable is essentially a relational database with a very user-friendly interface. And this, user-friendly interface significantly simplifies the whole database management component of the whole system, which is great. And also within Airtable, we've set up, you have the ability to set up various customized automations that we've used to clean and verify that data is correct coming into the system, and then obviously organizing the data into the appropriate tables. From Airtable, our data is then pulled into Google's Looker Studio, which we use to visualize our data through the use of dashboards and various reports. And we'll go into detail, or we'll provide a few examples rather a little bit later on of some of these dashboards. So you're not going to be looking at these small little photos the whole time. We will have bigger images to look at. And the final step in our system involves using what we call scorecards. So these scorecards are just Excel forms that are manually filled out by our program managers. And the data for these forms can be found in the Google Looker Studio dashboards. And this process is designed to encourage our managers to engage critically with the dashboards, enhancing their digital literacy. Because for some of our program managers, this is their first experience with some of these visualizations and graphs, which means that the dashboards may not always be immediately useful to them. So this step helps them become more comfortable and skilled in interpreting these data visualizations and presentations. Okay, so we refer to our system as a person-centered system. And this approach means that our database is centered around our beneficiaries. So our beneficiaries are the central entities of our system, and all of their interactions and program engagements with the various BI programs, Bulungula Incubator, are organized around them. And we've achieved this through the use of our relational database structure that ensures the systematic organization and resulting easy accessibility of our data. And this is visualized. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but this is visualized very roughly in our diagram over here. So at the center of our database, we have our little beneficiary, who's representing our beneficiary table, or as we refer to it, our master list. And then all of their program engagements are organized around them in what are called fact tables. And the master list, which is obviously this little guy over here, contains all essential beneficiary information. So it contains names, surnames, dates of birth, gender, and optionally ID numbers of our beneficiaries. And if, when we're collecting the data, if our beneficiaries weren't willing to share their ID number, or if they didn't have their ID with them at that time, we would generate a pseudo ID number for them. And the reason we do this is because this ID number is used as the unique identifier that allows us to track each beneficiary across the different programs that they engage with. So in the surrounding fact tables, which are represented by these little headings here, um, so one of these tables would have all the data that's relating to every single health consultation that's ever taken place at the Bulungula health points, which is this little heading here. While in another table, you would have all of the data that's related to a learner's performance in one of our e-learning programs. And using this unique identifier, we can obviously build a picture essentially of each beneficiary's engagements with the various BI programs. So this database structure serves a dual purpose. So on the one hand, it enables us to derive very valuable community level insights. So we can calculate the total percentage of our kids who are on track with the immunization and their vitamin A schedules. While on the other hand, we can take a deep dive into individual level data, and as I mentioned earlier, we can examine how a beneficiary has progressed across the different BI programs over a specific time period. So building up this master list was essentially the first step in building this data management system, and we did this by conducting a village-wide census, and this census was conducted by our community health workers. And they went around to every single household that the BI supports. So this is about 600 households. And they gathered all of the data points that now populates our master list. And part of the capture metrics that were taken during the census was the geolocation of each beneficiary's household. And this is the result of that. So these are all the households that the BI supports. However, it's not the only households that the BI supports. There are beneficiaries who engage with our programs, and these beneficiaries come from outside these. So this area represents 4 villages, and we have beneficiaries who come from outside these 4 villages to access our health point, which is over here, and at some of our schools. And the geolocation for those households are a little bit trickier to obtain. So we haven't yet got them onto our map. But yeah, essentially each beneficiary is sort of assigned, or not assigned, but is attached to one of these households, and thereby attached to every other beneficiary within that same household. So that's just another way we've sort of connected various beneficiaries. And this is a good segue, I guess, into our flagging system. So our flagging system is one of the more useful and important components of the BI system. And the reason it's so useful is that so within each program at the BI, there's various benchmarks that we expect our beneficiaries to meet. So, for example, in our ECD program, we expect our ECD learners to have an attendance rate of at least 80%. While in our home-based care program, we want all of our 0 to 3 children to be on track with their immunizations and their vitamin A schedules. And if, for whatever reason, at any time, if a beneficiary dips below one of these benchmarks, they are automatically flagged, and their name appears on the relevant flagging table. So this is one of those flagging tables. And so this is for our 0 to 3 program. So it's our home-based care workers go to the households of our 0 to 3 kids and conduct ECD at home visits and health visits. And this flagging table just shows when one of those beneficiaries haven't been seen for a month or 2 months. And we have loads of these flagging tables. We have about 3 or 4 flagging tables for each program at the BI. And what happens is a child's name would pop up over here, and the relevant program manager can then take decisive action to support this beneficiary in the way that's best for them. And the idea behind this map, actually, one of the ideas behind this map was that when a child or a beneficiary popped up on one of these flagging tables, we could then very quickly say to the program manager, who could say to the relevant teacher or home-based care worker, we could say, listen, here's where the child lives. This is essentially their household address, so we can direct our teachers and our home-based care workers to where the child lives to obviously go support them. But in the most beautiful way, excuse me, in the most beautiful way, this has actually never been used. The map has never been used because all of our home-based care workers and our teachers know their beneficiaries and their kids so intimately that they know exactly where they stay. So the only use for this map at the moment is a pretty picture and a presentation. Um, but that's essentially how our flagging system works. Okay, and then I'm going to hand over to Dali. He's going to take us through the transition from our hard copy capture to our digital capture.
Hi everyone, as you know, my name is Dali. I'll take you through the transaction from the hard copy into the digital based system. Uh, Basically, what happened is we started with a paper-based system where we were using a hard copies giving into the home-based carers. They go into the field and then fill up the information and then bring it down to the office once a month. And then we go through into that by recapturing into the system the whole hard copies from the different normal carriers. So then moving the reason why we moved from there, it's because it took like a lot of time doing capturing of that. It takes us like around 2 to 3 weeks actually capturing again. So then the reason why we used that, it's more cheaper than the digital forms. And then the other reason why we moved away from that is like we had a lot of like errors where the home-based errors would have misspelling and whatsoever. Then we decided to move into the digital forms where we would have Kobo Collect, and then we hosted like a lot of trainings with the home-based carers where we would make sure that everyone is comfortable with working with a Kobo Collect, and then it's more easy to work with that platform where you would like go into the field and then do your capturing. It doesn't need any internet up until like you once a day you want to sync your data, where we give them e-data, one tablet for each village, as we have about 4 villages that the home-based carers are working on. Then once a day before they knock off, they have to sync the data by hotspotting in one of the tablet that we send the data into in order to hotspot the rest of the team. Yeah, and then it uh, it wasn't like just one thing done, but like it took us like a few trainings working with them, and then creating a forms, and then giving a try to those forms into all the home-based carers, and then they will come back with the questions and suggestion, and we also always like make sure that everyone is comfortable with it. Like we take a consent of their questions actually. Then yeah, uh we make sure that everyone understand the system actually. And then what else? Okay, so the actual challenge we had is with the system is only the network issue, where sometimes it would like take a day with no internet, but then we like they have to also do to sync the data on the following day. And then in terms of communication, making sure that everyone is on the same page. We have a WhatsApp group where we ask the questions in whatever we see. If we have any flag on the dashboard, and then we send immediately an information. And then also they have, if they, let's say there's a newborn, they have to send the names with the ID numbers or date of birth, and then we immediately add the newborn into the system, and then they can work from there once they have an internet access. So that was my short presentation. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone, it's me Sam. Uh, I'll be taking you through on the capturing, on how the capturing is going with the with the Mamakayas and also other other projects that we're working with. So how it's happened, we have a form called Copper Collect, whereby we do the capture on. We have an app. Sorry, we have an app that is called Copper Collect. So how it works, the the normal kayaks, we click on the form, and then work with the date. So when they click on the form, they will we have forms on the app. When they click on the app, they will click on the form that they are working on, and then select the date of the day, and then on the next there will be a normal kaya, where you have to choose which normal kaya is working like which normal kaya is working with the child. And then the next step will be the list of the kids, the beneficiaries. Then you click your own beneficiary, and then if the beneficiary is not on the list, you search. And then if it's not there, that's when we have to go back and then communicate with them to give us the information so that we can add. But how it works then, you click on the beneficiary, and then click on the gender, and then also you go through with the questions as they go, and then you click on the what do you call uh, no, not the submissions. You go with the questions. Then the questions the questions will just take you through through to the end, and then when you're on the end of it, you click on the submission. That's when the information that you put in will come so quick.
Yeah, then we're not doctors. Actually, don't worry about the blood pressure. We're not sure.
We're not sure about this, but how it works, you just go with the question as they go on the app. On then at the end there will be a question whereby it asks you, is the data correct or not? And then when you get there, you click if it is correct, or if it's not, you click no. But if it's correct, you click correct. And then it comes on our system, whereby we have to monitor all the submissions that you put in. And then if we find any errors, that's when we do the follow-up.
Okay.
I think that was my part.
I think after the video, if you
Nice
can
one.
go back a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I forgot one thing. It's where, as Sam told you about the video, that information is captured, and then you sync the information after in the afternoon. Then it immediately appears in our on a table. Then on the following day, we check the whole list of the beneficiaries that were captured yesterday with Nomakaya names, with the home-based names. Then we send we what do you call it? We export it into PDF for whatever paper. Then we send it back to Onomakaya just to confirm that the information the data that we have in our site is the correct numbers based on what they did yesterday. So that's what I wanted to add also.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam and Dali. That's brilliant. Yeah, so that's how we cap that's the capture end of the data. And as Dali mentioned now, there's various verification checks. So we have some automated verification checks. So checking if there's any duplicate entries, or if there's any entries that we can obviously check for in an automated fashion, whether there's inconsistencies. And once the record passes that test, then it's checked by Sam, Dali, and myself, the actual record itself, to just confirm that all is in order. And once it's passed those checks, then it's populated into the cleaned data table, as we refer to it, and then it's pulled into the rest of the system. So this is a snapshot or a tab of one of our dashboards. So each program at the BI has their own data capture tool, data storage space, and data visualization dashboard. And this is a snapshot taken out of our health point dashboard. And this landing table over here, this just tells us the total number of consultations that takes place within any given month at the health point. And at the bottom there, those same consultations are disaggregated by gender, consultation type, and by village. This tab is again for the health point, and it dives a little bit deeper into child consultations, and family planning and pregnancy consultations. And then this last tab over here dives a little bit deeper into HIV, TB, and non-communicable diseases consultations. So yeah, this is just a representation of how some of our dashboards look. And this is the interface that our program managers engage with to see what's going on in all of their programs from obviously remote location. Another interesting point to add is that, as Dali mentioned, when the data is captured, the limiting factor in terms of how quickly you see it on your dashboard is network access. So if we're capturing data, or if data has been captured in the field and there's no network for a day, then it takes a day until that information, that data can obviously run through the system and pop up on our dashboard. But if we having a good week with network connectivity, then the dashboards are very close to a live representation of what's going on in the field. All right, and then so we're getting to the end of the presentation, and for those who are interested in looking at essentially a toolkit that we've created that tells you exactly how we set up our system, the lessons that we learned, what we suggest, and what tools should be used, the cost of setting up one of these things. The BI, we've built little toolkits that you can download for free. So you can either pop your email address into this chat, and we can email one through to you, or you can scan this QR code, and you'll be directed to the BI's website where you can download this toolkit. Cool. Thank you very much. We'll open the floor to any questions. Hey, Siobhan. Yes.
Hi, thank you guys so much. Ryan, Sam, everyone that presented, that was really interesting. So yeah, I have a question around so my background, many years ago, I was involved with a South African startup that was looking to create forms just like this, where we had like offline functionality and it synced with the Wi-Fi. And the reason that we were doing that is because we were working with farmers, we were working with the AgriHub concept, and we had about 3,000 farmers that we were supporting. And when we got the data together to aggregate it, we were then able to basically procure and sell and do market access. These were all like permaculture organic farms. But we were then able to like connect that to like Woolworths and sell bulk suppliers before it even like left the ground, you know. So we had like, you know, big orders coming in, and we were able to then like bridge the gap between the emerging farmer and the market and what those needs were. And the reason I give that context, you know, I'm firstly very interested in the tool that you guys are using because that project ultimately failed. I think it was a timing thing. It was so many years ago. I think the technology wasn't there. And I think it did fail because of funding. But have you found with aggregating your data and seeing these visualizations, have you found any interesting data points besides being able to measure your own impact? Have you been able to kind of connect the dots in some sort of interesting and unexpected way?
Um, yeah, it's a very good question. So I guess that's also a good question for some of our managers because they engage very critically with the dashboards. We just the nerds behind the computer who make the dashboards. But what we did find out interestingly is that so we just gave you an example of our health dashboards, but we also have ECD dashboards. And within our ECD dashboards, there's a photo verification step. And the purpose of the photo verification is to number one, check that you know, all learners that are marked as present are actually present. And also to check that activities in the classroom are taking place as intended. And by doing these checks, we found that an interesting point. We found that puzzles that were being used in one of our remote ECD centers were at an incorrect what do you call it, age level. So the pieces were too small for the age level of the kids who were you know, supposed to be using that puzzle. So that's, you know, something interesting that we found out that we you know, only would have found out if you're able to make you know, regular trips to the ECD, which unfortunately because of the distance from our main office to the ECD and you know, just resource constraints and whatnot, we weren't able to do so. So that was yeah, something that we found that we weren't looking for.
Yeah, that's great. And then I guess as a follow-up question, the other thing I'd like to know is I'm now involved in building out part of the team doing the database of traditional healers in the country. And the sensitivity to data capture when you're dealing with people's health data in relation to the POPIA Act, have you found that using mass tools like Airtable and Google, has that actually given you sufficient protection? Have you ever had any like data vulnerabilities? You know, have you ever had issues with like people not being able to sync and having lost the tablets? Like, has there been any real challenges that have come up from this really amazing work, actually?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's you know, something that we you know, in terms of data sensitivity and data protection and everything, we like very open to learn about because I think there's so many different lessons from different you know, implementations in various contexts that you know, we learn from, we share, whatnot. And what we haven't actually had any issues like that as of yet because losing tablets and stealing tablets, luckily for us, is not something that we have to that we've had to deal with, and you know, hopefully won't have to deal with, because the security where we are within our community is just, you know, so great that if a tablet had to be lost somewhere, it would be, you know, returned within a couple of hours. I know that's not necessarily the same situation if you're capturing data in an urban setting, which is something that regularly comes up, is exactly that. You know, what happens with the data on the tablet if it hasn't synced yet, because obviously you know, the data is stored temporarily on the device until it's able to sync. You know, what happens if the tablet is stolen in that case? And yeah, I mean, we just luckily haven't had to deal with that situation. And our context, I think, you know, somewhat protects us from that. In terms of the data, once it's you know, obviously off the tab, I mean, obviously we set the tablet so that as soon as the data syncs, that data record is deleted from the tablet. And then it goes straight to Airtable. And we did our homework with Airtable to make sure that you know, the cloud platform is very secure. which it is. So, as far as we are aware, the storage on Airtable complies with, the POPI Act. But in terms of, I'm not sure if you did ask about it, but in terms of informed consent, that's also something that we got into, that we sort of made part of the process at the start of this year. So what we do is, with our programs, it's generally regular monitoring of the same patient, right, every month. But we obviously onboard new patients, at various intervals. And when we do onboard a patient, there's verbal consent that we, with a witness, that we do get from our beneficiaries, and then every month after that, there's a shorter question just to say, this is a question relating to the consent that we chatted about when we onboarded you. Are you still okay with it? And then we go ahead with that. So as far as we are aware, we are compliant with POPI in that sense.
Yeah, great. Just absolutely beautiful project. You should be very proud. It's amazing to see a South African group just operating at this level, and that map was a very pretty picture. So I still see it has a lot of value. So yeah, just well done.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. Are there any other questions? If not, we will close out and make the recording available. I think there's something in the chat there. It's an email. All right. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for attending the webinar. Have a fantastic day, and bye.
Bye.